Lesson 8, surface area of rectangular prisms. So surface area, once again, we're going to be taking things that we have learned so far and going to be applying them in a new way. Surface area, just like the name sounds, we are finding the area of all of the surfaces of a three-dimensional shape. And today we're just going to be looking at rectangular prisms. So we're only going to be working with rectangles, which means you only have to remember one formula for today, which is area equals base times height. So I have for you here a picture of a cube, and what we're going to be doing is finding the area of all of the different sides of the cube. Highlight them for you there. Find the area of all the different sides of the cube and adding them together. And what is sometimes helpful when you are finding surface area is to break down the shape, flatten it out into the net. We've worked with nets before in our last geometry unit, so you should remember when you take a three-dimensional shape, you imagine that you kind of unfold it and flatten it out, it becomes a net. And that's sometimes helpful for visualizing the different sides that we're going to be looking at and working with today. So to find the surface area of a cube, it's actually pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're going to find the area of one of the square sides, and then because cubes have equal sides, all you have to do is then multiply that by 6. So I'll go to a new page to do our work over here. So we use our formula, area equals base times height. We do 6 times 6. We get an area of 36 centimeters squared for one side. Okay, that's the area of one side. And then since, like I said, cubes have the same measurements for each side, to find the surface area, all you do is you take that one side and you multiply it by the number of sides. 36 times 6, you end up with a surface area of 216 centimeters squared. So cubes are pretty simple, like I said, because each of the sides has the same area, and you just go from there, you multiply by 6. It gets a little bit trickier when we get to rectangular prisms though, because we have different sides. So what's important for rectangular prisms is that you really write down all of your steps and you keep track of what you are doing. Okay, so for this rectangular prism, for instance, you'll notice we have a square side over here, but rectangular prisms always have a matching opposite side. So this side over here is the same as the first square that I highlighted in blue. Okay, so we know that those two are the same. And if we imagine here's our net, I know this doesn't really look like a square, it's the best picture I could find, so just imagine it looks a little bit more square. Those two are the same. Okay, so let's start by calculating the surface area, or the area of the square. So we do area equals base times height. We do 3 times 3. We end up with 9 centimeters squared. Now, because there are 2 of those squares, what we can do is multiply 9 times 2. So to find what it equals together for those two sides, we do our 9 times 2. We end up with 18 centimeters squared for those two sides. Okay, so we can imagine to ourselves we've got those sides taken care of. But now we have to look at the rest of the sides. And for this one, this rectangular prism, these sides are all actually the same. So these 4 sides will all have the same measurement. It will be 6 by 3. Okay, so we follow our formula again. Area equals base times height. We do 6 times 3. We end up with 18 centimeters squared. But now we have to remember that we have 4 sides. So we take our 18, we multiply it by 4, we get a 72. I'm out of space, but assume centimeters squared. Okay, so we've got, for the square ends, we have 18 centimeters squared. For the rest of the sides, we have 72 centimeters squared. So to find that surface area at the end, all you do is you do your 18 plus your 72, and you end up with 90 centimeters squared. Okay, so quite a bit of calculating going on. So like I mentioned already, really, really important that you take it slow, You write out all of your steps, you label your steps. Notice here I put a short form for square and for rectangle, keeping track of how many sides you have of each type to multiply by, and then finally adding them together at the end. So make sure that you're really, really organized as you're doing your work today, and that will stop you hopefully from making a lot of mistakes. One more type of rectangular prism to look at. This one's a little bit different because our ends are not squares anymore. Okay, so I made it a rectangle. So these two ends, they still match. So those ones will have the same area. And if we look, let's color over here. This rectangle will match this rectangle. However, we can't use the same measurement for the top and bottom. So I'll just do some highlighting and then I'll show you why that works. So let's jump back here over to our first one. So our ends here, if we just do our formula in our head here, we've got 2 times 3, we get 6 centimeters squared for each of those ends. If we look at the blue ones, notice we have a rectangle that's 5 by 2. Base times height, 5 times 2 is 10 centimeters squared. And then this opposite matching one, also 10 centimeters squared. But then if we look at the top and bottom of the shape, this side would still be 5, but this one is actually a 3 to match up with over here. So the area of the top and bottom is 15 centimeters squared, not 10 centimeters squared. So just something to be aware of. Rectangular prisms have opposite matching sides, but it won't always be the case like it was back a few slides ago, where we had 4 sides that were all the same. So you really, really have to be paying attention here, keeping track of your different rectangles, thinking, labeling. I would encourage you to write down the numbers on different side lengths for yourselves on your pieces of paper to help you. And once again, keeping all of your steps labeled and nice and neat and organized so that you can keep track. And then this shouldn't hopefully be too hard for you to do. So take it nice and slow. Slow and steady wins the race on this one.